So headed to the gym for day 2 of this bulk journey. 6 o'clock p.m. and the only thing I've eaten so far today, I had 3 large eggs and about 125 grams of white rice. Hung out for a little bit. Then I had a tortilla before I drank my pre-workout, which just happened a little while ago. Now I'm heading to the gym to do arms. I was thinking about doing legs. You know, I do want to train legs more frequently, at least twice a week, and maybe twice as frequently in the rotation as opposed to everything else. Just because, you know, my legs need the work. I've been slacking on them, especially in terms of functional strength. I'd like to be able to squat more and just be able to, you know, just brace more weight. I don't know. Have bigger legs, be able to build a bigger base, whatever. A couple things about yesterday. One, which is huge, is my camera, which is just an iPhone, wasn't using my headphones as the mic to record, which for some reason I thought it was. I don't know why I thought that would work. I guess I just assumed maybe because of like Snapchat does that or whatever. But at any rate, you know, you could see in the clips I'm fucking talking to myself and you can't hear me. One of the things that I was explaining when I was talking yesterday, and that's one of the things I wanted to touch on when I got out of the gym yesterday, but I forgot, was the straps I was using. New to me. I'd never used straps before. The people I had started in the gym with kind of were under the impression that if you can lift something raw, you shouldn't be lifting it. But recently it came to my attention that straps could be utilized to, you know, take your grip out of the equation when you're trying to work back or buys, which in my case, trying to work back, I really want to get my lats working. And when I'm tightening my grip, I only feel it in my bicep, my forearm. So to force that lat engagement, you know, I tried using the straps, but the thing about the straps that I bought specifically, if you know anything about straps, or I guess just gym equipment, but specifically straps, usually it's like a loop, right? And then a long piece of cloth, and you like loop it around itself and it tightens, and then you put the excess of the strap up on your hand, right? I think they call that a lasso wrist strap. And the one that I was using, which they sold them like at the front desk at the gym, they were on sale, and I picked a pair up. They're like wrist straps, right? That you would use to like bench or whatever with the little loop. You need Velcro them, and they sit padded on your wrist, and then there's like an excess on the padding that you Velcro onto your wrist. There's like that's where the flap for the strap is that you would use. And in that strap, there's rubber woven throughout, which is what I tried talking about. So when anybody who's used straps knows this, when you're like revving the straps to get them tight in your palms, they're like sliding against whatever bar you're trying to use. And the rubber on the straps was causing too much friction on a lot of the bars I was using. And I couldn't fucking like get my grip tight, you know, like I couldn't get the straps tight enough to take my grip out of the equation. So the straps kind of were serving as a detriment yesterday to me. Not that I'm not going to incorporate them, but maybe I need different straps, the lasso straps. You know, but yeah, it was just taken away from my lift because I had to think about it, you know, like I was thinking about getting that grip going, and then once I was going, I was like, fuck, it's still not there. I'm wasting all this time setting up, you know, and then I got to use my grip anyways, but there's like these straps that are in the way of my palms from squeezing. not ideal. Today, buys and tries on the menu. I wanted to do buys with back yesterday, but I didn't have time. The gym was closing. I wasn't even able to do cardio yesterday either, which, if you're not doing your cardio, at least I'd say like 150 minutes a week of like, some what they call zone 2 cardio. I'm not going to get into it. You can look into that yourself. But you should be doing, cardio every day, cardio 5 days a week. Shit, if you're doing it hard enough, cardio 3-4 days a week, as long as you're getting those like 150 minutes in minimum, and you're doing what you feel you need to be doing. If you get through a couple weeks of cardio, even a couple days of cardio, you'll be astonished, especially if you've never consistently done cardio before. You'll be astonished how amazing you feel, just in general. If you're somebody who maybe has a little bit of depression and anxiety, you suffer with those types of feelings time to time. And, a lot of people say the gym's really good for depression, for anxiety, and it is, but cardio specifically does wonders. So get it done. I'll be doing it today after buys and tries, which is not ideal. Usually you want to do it at separate times if you can. And my schedule allows for it. I've just been a little lazy. And then, I'm already in the gym. So instead of just leaving, I try to stay and do the cardio, which I've been doing, which is good. But yeah, buys and tries. You'll be seeing a lot of sets of curls, a lot of sets of push downs, maybe some other things. But most of it, you're not going to hear me. You'll just see me because I don't have a microphone yet. I ordered one and it's on its way. So you'll be seeing that. But yeah, I guess let's stop talking about it and be about it. Get into it. And I'll catch you guys back here. Actually, I'll catch you guys inside to check the arm pump when we're done. Well, little did Erica the past know I'd be here for another voiceover. My microphone hasn't come in yet. I started here with some hammer curls. Made sure to warm up first with lighter dumbbells, but I didn't include those. Started out with 40 pounds, tried to get a solid, around 10-ish reps, but also pushing a failure, not exactly aiming for 10 and then dropping it. Rep these out pretty well. What I'm trying to do here is really focus on the area where my forearm and my bicep meet to be able to get that overall thickness from the side. Change the angle up here just because I didn't want other people included in the shot. Same deal. Repping out in hammer strength. I think I went up to 50 pounds here. I'm really trying to isolate my biceps. That might be something that you're going to be hearing a lot, is that when I'm doing these reps, I'm really trying to target a specific area in my arm for muscle growth. I try to bang out a couple more, but I end up failing to bring the dumbbells all the way up. Back at it yet again, hammering away, no pun intended. I'm obviously trying to minimize the swing here. As you can tell, there is a little bit of momentum happening. It's hard to avoid that when you're doing heavier curls, but you really want to minimize the amount that the initial shift when you do that rep is causing the dumbbell to travel up. So after hammer strength, I decided to continue with hammer strength preacher dumbbell curls. I like these because you can orient yourself in a way that you're maximizing the stretch. I have pretty long limbs, and so I need a pretty substantial range of motion to be able to get real full contraction. So I like these. Again, a large part of the reason I'm doing them is to incorporate a lot of forearm action. If my grip was turned such that my palm was facing upwards, it would be more so bicep, but targeting a different area. So with these, you're going to want to start with the weaker appendage and match the reps with whichever side is stronger. You don't want to be overworking the stronger side compared to the weak side. You want to be making sure that you're accounting for your asymmetries. My left is weaker than my right, so that's what I'm doing here. More curls. Same deal here, same weight. I like the squeeze that I'm getting here. And a big part of the reason I'm doing them is the second exercise for biceps is because I'm trying to get maximum contraction, maximum squeezage. And so with a exercise that's more strict isolation, like the preacher curl, you get the added benefit of being able to overload the muscle when you do it earlier on. If I was way more fatigued, I wouldn't be able to challenge the biceps in the same way. Sure, I could get a similar pump, but this happens to provide a better benefit for my fitness goals. So with these, obviously starting to get pretty heavy. For what I'm doing, and really for anybody who's trying to build muscle or strength, they're going to want to be picking up weights that really challenge you towards the end of the set. You don't want to be messing around with weights that you can rep around for 20 plus. And with that being said, I dropped the weight down to 25 because 35 is starting to feel a little too challenging for what I'm going for. On these, I'm obviously really trying to focus on making sure that I have a full squeeze in my hands and that the bicep is completely gassed by the end of each of the sets that I'm doing here. This is a good opportunity to establish a better mind-muscle connection, no matter how long you've been doing something like this. Especially with me, I deal with an injury in my left hand, and so making sure that squeeze happens as well as it does on my right side is something that I'm always thinking about when I'm doing these. So jumping from left to right, I want to make sure that the squeeze is similar and that, you know, the amount of work that I'm doing is comparable. If you're going for symmetry, if you're looking to create a build on yourself like I am, then making sure that you're getting the proper amount of work out of both of your biceps when you're doing something like this is really important. Even if it's not a single arm movement like this, if you're doing something where both limbs are incorporated, you want to make sure that you're working both sides equally. You don't want to favor one side in order to get the reps out. That's where asymmetry comes in a lot of the times, and just gets worse and worse unless you actively try to change that. So I continue to rep out standing after doing the preacher curls just because I felt like I wasn't getting enough of a squeeze or contraction. Probably should have went to 30s instead of 25s, but I just want to make sure that I'm getting the same amount of work on both sides so that once I put the dumbbell down, I feel the same amount of burn on both of my biceps, both my forearms, you know, and my grip, etc. There's definitely an argument to be made that I'm doing too many reps here for what I'm trying to accomplish, and I probably agree with you. After finishing up preacher curls, I went up to go grab a cable for some cable curls. I grabbed a easy bar grip just because I happen to like the way that my biceps feel when I'm doing it. Sometimes I use a straight bar. I've even seen people use the V-bar that's often used for tricep pushdowns. Just, you know, figure out what feels good for you. This machine, you might have experienced this before yourself, but this machine is a little older and the cable has a little more resistance to it, generally speaking, but the way that it feels is actually really nice in terms of tension. And as you can see, I moved my thumbs. This was in order to increase the amount of supination in my grip, because if you just feel like in a more intense squeeze in my bicep, especially in the peak of my bicep. So I continue to do the same grip cable curls. I moved the weight a little bit heavier and changed the angle. Didn't work out so much, but what I'm continuing to do here is completely control the weight all the way up and all the way down, and really try to maintain a solid range of motion. When I come down, I really feel a nice stretch in my biceps. Even when I'm resting, my biceps are constantly feeling tension from this cable. It's part of the reason why I like these so much. But if on an exercise like these, you're really throwing your back into it, you're really using a lot of momentum, you're probably not getting a lot of benefit out of the exercise itself. So try to reconsider. When I'm doing these curls, and actually really when I'm doing any curls, what I'm trying to imagine in my head is my elbow staying completely stationary and my bicep hinging the elbow rather than the elbow moving around, if that makes sense. I want the rotation point, the hinge point, to be at the elbow, but I don't want the elbow itself to be moving. Almost as if it's a strict pulley. A lot of other things you could do with machines and cables is, as you fatigue out, you can burn out with partial reps rather than having to get the full range of motion every single time. So I did a drop set on these just to increase the amount of burn I was feeling, and because I wasn't really too happy with the reps that I pushed out towards the end there. Watching these back, I'm noticing I'm having a habit of doing too many reps, so if this is you, increase the weight and try a little harder. All right, back downstairs for a machine preacher curl to finish off biceps. I really like the tension on this machine, and it's a little bit of a boost to my ego just being able to throw a plate on there. If I was fresher, I'd probably be able to do double the weight easily, but that's not what this is about here, is it? So I'm starting to sound like a broken record at this point, but I'm focusing on range of motion, focusing on contraction, focusing on control. A lot of the times when you're doing preacher curls, that's really all that you should ever be focusing on. This isn't particularly a heavy set exercise for you to do. Now you can go ahead and do the moderately heavy, but I've seen way too many instances of people just snapping their tendons or tearing their muscles open doing something like a preacher, so just know that that's a risk that you'll be taking on. You ever see black painted brick before? I really thought about that. So I actually really happen to like this particular grip. For some reason, it just gives me a really nice stretch and squeeze on my biceps. I've mentioned this before, but people are shaped differently. You may or may not like this exercise as much as I do. If you happen to have one of these bad boys in your gym and you haven't tried it out, go ahead and try it out. It was probably a couple of years of working out before I decided to step on one of these and try one. So I dropped down from 2 plates to 1 plate here just to burn my biceps out to the point where I feel like they're really being worked to failure. Now, like I had mentioned before, something like this, I'm letting the grip strength of my left hand be the leading determinant factor in the reps here. If I was letting my dominant strength right hand lead here, it'd be a whole different story. So setting up for one last drop set of the preacher curls here. I've seen a lot of people do these standing and leaning forward. I've seen a lot of people do these with the seat dropped way low. I've seen people do these in a number of different ways. Just try and figure out which way gets the most feeling out of whichever muscle it is that you're trying to work. Here, obviously, it would be biceps. One thing that you might be able to tell here is that I'm not necessarily using my grip when I'm repping. I'm trying to rest the handle on my palm, and if anything, I'm using my bicep to brace the weight. If my grip is involved, I'm trying to make sure that my bicep is the leading factor that is causing the grip strength in the first place. All right, now to start for triceps, I started out with some V-bar pushdowns. This is the one that I mentioned that some people curl with sometimes. I started out with the weight stack. A couple different tricep exercises happen to be exercises that I can go to the bottom of the weight stack on, which is always good for the ego, but is not important whatsoever in terms of getting stronger or getting more muscular. You know, if you're trying to push the right amount of weight for the reps that you're doing, then, you know, that's going to be a result of your muscles squeezing and contracting. That's not going to be a result of the numbers that you're looking at and trying to push. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think you get what I'm saying. Playing around with different angles, throwing around the weight stack again. One thing that I'm doing for these pushdowns here is trying to keep my shoulders down, keep my back a little bit leaned forward in order to get a full range of motion and a nice amount of isolation in my triceps. Tried to put extra weight on top of the weight stack, but there's not any pins in the gym that allow that. I could buy my own pin and bring it in to be able to do that, which I might, so. But until then, I guess I'll be throwing that around for that exercise at least. Going at it again, you can obviously see that I'm slowing the weight down. I'm not allowing it to go back up towards the rack as fast as it would if I were to just let it go, or really anywhere near that fast. And by doing that, focusing on the negatives, as one would call it, you're getting a little extra amount of work. Now, I switched up the grip from the V-bar to this crazy rope-type grip that my gym happens to have. If you have access to one of these grips, you've never used one, I highly recommend that you do, because you get a crazy amount of squeeze in your triceps. I can't even describe to you the squeeze that I'm feeling in my tris as I'm doing these. So part of it's because I'm getting fatigued by this point. Part of it's because of the way that this handle works. I'm kind of letting momentum take over a little bit more of the reps than I would have with the other bar. As you could see, especially towards the end, I start to move the rope around a little bit faster, throw it down a little bit harder. One thing that I was told on pushdowns a while ago is that you want to keep your wrist straight as if you're punching something, which you could see I'm not doing perfectly here. And it's a little bit harder to do with a rope type of grip that moves around, but that's the idea. You want to keep your wrist as straight as you can. So I moved over to this kind of old school Nautilus dip machine, which is amazing. I personally love the squeeze that I get in my triceps. Now, I've always been somewhat strong on this lift. Even starting out, it was one of the lifts that I could throw a little bit more weight on just to make myself feel better. So with this, I'm basically just taking the weight stack and getting as many solid controlled reps as I can. So I feel like a lot of these Nautilus machines and a lot of the old school equipment that's out there is pretty top notch. If you've never, sat on a machine or a piece of equipment around your gym because you think it's old and you think that's why it might not be good, you should definitely rethink that. Some of the best pumps that I've ever gotten have been from these old school types of equipment. So I got enough juice in the tank for one more of these heavy sets of dips. If I had done these as the first thing in the exercise, I'd be sitting on it, repping it out all day long, honestly. So if that's you, if you're too strong for a particular machine, a particular movement, a particular exercise, try doing it later on in the lift and see how it feels then. And for those of you who look to me in envy that I could max out this machine, consider the fact that if I continue to get stronger, this machine's going to serve less and less benefit to me. So there is a downside to it, as as braggadocious as that may be. So to finish out triceps and biceps, just because I'm an animal, I do these single arm pull downs, push downs, single arm curl superset. And you'll see as I do them, I go on to, grab the cable stack on the other side for stability. And you probably can already guess here, but all that I'm doing is focusing on isolation, contraction, range of motion, etc. So with this variation of bicep curls, curls really, it's only one type of movement, but by lifting your elbow up near your head and doing the curl this way, it does change the way that it feels a little bit. And it's always a good excuse to stare at yourself in the mirror, no? So I do one more set here just to finish out the squeeze. If you are getting ready to leave and you feel like there's still a little bit more that you could do, you really feel like you haven't gotten a solid pump, it might be in your best interest to stay and do something extra, especially if you feel like you hadn't challenged yourself enough in the beginning. There's plenty of arguments to be made that you should be exercising within 60-minute windows, this or that. I'll get into that another time. But like I said, if you really feel like you're not finished, then finish it out. Some food for thought that most don't consider is that your body and the changes that are happening to your body happen outside of the gym as they do in the gym. So what you're doing in the gym will continue to affect you when you leave up until when you come back and even further. So make sure to keep that mindset all throughout. Recovery is as important as exercise. Now, if you want to do this movement in the gym, try not to get in other people's way. You know, if it was a little more crowded, if there was somebody that was looking to use the other cable here, I would likely be doing a different exercise. But during this workout, it's later in the day, and there's only a couple other people in here, so I feel comfortable doing this. If you happen to work out at like a Planet Fitness or something like that where you never really get the gym to yourself, you might have to just go ahead and be a little assertive if you really want to do this exercise. But there's others that are more comparable, so don't think that it's necessary. It's certainly not. All in all, no complaints. Pretty solid arm day here. I guess let's relay it to Pump Eric to quietly explain what's going on here. Alright. Make this semi-quick. Buys and tries done. I'll talk a little bit about, you know, how things felt with contraction, different bits and stuff in the car. You know, starting out I felt kind of strong, but I gassed out pretty quick. And I was trying to focus on contraction a lot, but at least in my left arm, it's a little tough to get a nice squeeze in my bicep, my tricep. Or at the bottom, you know, depending on which I'm doing. Regardless, I think it went pretty well. So my biceps are pretty fried. My right bicep is way stronger. I said it yesterday. I don't know if the camera picked it up, but to say my posing needs work would be an understatement. A large part of that is establishing that mind muscle connection. I got a lot to talk about, but we still got cardio to do, so I'm gonna hop on the Stairmaster, get that over with, and be back in the car for a little chit chat. I was gonna talk a little bit more here, but my mind's kind of going blank. I kind of want to gather my thoughts while I'm on the Stairmaster. "30 minutes on the Stairmaster done. Buys and tries are pretty cooked. A couple things I wanted to talk about. One, you know, especially people who are new in the gym, you don't want to be ego lifting. Even me, as somebody who's been in the gym a long time, and this is probably a problem that you're always going to deal with, is wanting to lift heavier weights. You want the amount of weight that you're doing to be, you want to push the right amount of weight. I was trying to say it in a different way, but you don't want to push weight that's too heavy for the muscles that you're trying to work. If, say, you're trying to do curls and you're throwing the weight around so much that you're not actually getting proper contraction on your biceps, that's going to be to a detriment when it comes to your gains. You could probably see in the beginning, I was going for heavier curls at first and trying to stay as strict as possible. And, started getting a little cheaty towards the end. I don't really cheat on curls like how a lot of people do. So you could get what I'm saying. There's a subtle mix. And I guess it ties into another thing I was going to talk about with ego lifting and stuff. You want to do your heavy lifts when you have the energy to do it. Like, say if you're weak on squats, you don't want to hit legs, do leg extensions, hamstring curls, calf raises, and then go hit squats, because you're going to be significantly weaker than you were before. Now, you could do that to pre-fatigue. There's arguments for that or whatever. But if you're trying to be strong on your strongest lifts, you're going to want to do them first. But you're also not going to want to grab weights that are too heavy. You got to check your ego. You got to make sure that, you're doing the right thing. You're lifting the right weight. Especially if you're starting out, because if you're starting out, you're not going to know exactly what proper contraction feels like, especially on some of the more advanced lifts. Like when I was doing pec flies, it took me a long time to be able to actually feel my chest squeezing or contracting when I was actually doing the movement. So you don't want to overwhelm yourself with the amount of weight you're doing such that you can't establish that mind-muscle connection. You don't want to be doing things, exercises, movements that don't feel good for you. Maybe not when you're starting out, if you're learning, or even if you're pretty advanced and you're trying a new exercise or a new movement. You want to give it time. You want to learn the movement properly with good form and, establish that mind-muscle connection such that you could do the lift well before you start to push heavy weight. But once you're established, once you know how to do a lift, you're going to know what feels good and what doesn't feel good. For example, different types of grips on lat pull downs for back. People's shoulder widths, their arm length, their paths of movement to be able to engage their lat when they're pulling their shoulder blades back and forth, they're all going to be slightly anatomically different from person to person. I, as somebody who, I'm 6'1", I'm a little on the taller side, my limbs are very long. The amount of movement down to up I have to do for benching, any type of chest press, to be able to get my hand or whatever I'm holding close to my chest, my elbow so far back behind my back that, I'm probably putting my shoulders in a bad position. And I do have a lot of shoulder pain. And that might be why I started out, when my dad showed me how to work out, he had my elbows kind of go to parallel. My bar didn't hit the chest. And, the typical, you got to touch your chest or you're not repping it out. So I switched up how I bench and all this and that. My point is that if you're doing something and it doesn't feel good, you're not getting that engagement after you've already taken the time to figure out the movement, do something else. Do something that's gonna give you the nicest pump, the most contraction, the best burn. You know what I mean? And don't be stupid. Don't never squat, deadlifts, or, cardio doesn't feel good. I don't do cardio. You get what I'm saying. You want to make sure you're hitting all your bases, but there's no reason not to be doing what you prefer or don't prefer. Like, I guess one good example is today I was doing preacher curls with the the type of grip that somebody like Sam Sulek, for example, he talks about how he hates that shit. And I've seen him put a D handle. He'll grab like a handle that you put on a cable and put that on the preacher handle to do preacher curls. And he likes that grip. I personally haven't tried that. I don't like that. But there's nothing wrong with one or the other. You know, I'm getting a nice contraction on my biceps. He's getting a crazy contraction on his biceps. It's not, as long as you're working the muscle, then it's all that you got to do. And I guess one last thing, because it's something that I noticed just being at the gym working out today, is, and it's actually kind of funny, everybody's recording themselves. At least the gym that I go to, I'm sure you can tell just based off of the imagery all over the wall and stuff. There's a lot of people who are, you know, they got their tripods. There's a couple people in there who have like cameras or whatever. Somebody looked like they were getting like professional work shot. And he has like a photographer like following him around and shit. So, and this kind of goes for anything, you know, if you want to start a YouTube channel, starting a podcast, you know what I mean? Whatever it is, if you're scared to get something started, I mean, Nike has the iconic phrase for a reason, right? Just do it. Just get it done with. Get over that initial embarrassment. I feel stupid walking around with a tripod. I feel stupid talking to myself a little bit right now. I feel a little stupid, especially posing in the gym. And that's actually one thing that I'm going to touch on as one last thing. But, you know, I don't forget what I was saying. Oh, yeah, the embarrassment thing. I don't think that you should let that prevent you from seeing what could happen if you actually go with whatever you're thinking about doing. I always think about, what if I had the balls to go out and do this instead of not doing it or whatever. At least this way you get to say that you did it and you don't have that regret or that wonder about like the what ifs, you know? I, for one, am getting it done, and I feel like I'm holding myself a little bit more accountable just by recording these, which is nice. So even if it doesn't serve as something where I blow up or like, you know, I end up being a fucking bodybuilder, I'm just doing the damn thing, you know? And seeing myself on camera constantly, it's making me, I'm forcing myself to be accountable, you know? Because if I slack off, then I'm gonna look stupid, because it's all out there for the world to see. You know, posing, checking my pump after I work out, to be completely honest with you, also even looking at my workout videos, I'm disappointed with my physique, disappointed with the way that I look a little bit. I'll admit that I probably have some, you know, form of body dysmorphia. I know everybody who eventually gets into lifting really does develop that. But to be frank, you know, I'm just not happy with where I'm at. I can at times appreciate certain things about me, and maybe I'll task my future self with putting a picture up somewhere around here just to show how far I've come from the start of my fitness journey. And not to mention the fact that I haven't taken anything besides maybe protein and creatine. And to be honest with you, I've probably never maintained a caloric surplus. So I got to cut myself a little bit of slack. But, you know, I'm disappointed and I have a long way to go. But what I wanted to say, and the whole point that I'm bringing this up, is that if you are looking at me and my physique and you are way more impressive than me, and you're like laughing at me, you know, I'm impressed, I guess, you know, congratulations. There's plenty of people that, you know, are more knowledgeable than me, fitter than me, stronger than me, more disciplined, all this and that. And I respect them, and you should probably listen to what they say more so than what I do, as so long as they're knowledgeable, you know. But a lot of you probably, if anybody's watching this, you might see my physique and that's a goal for you. You know what I mean? My level of fitness, the way that I look, the muscles that I have on my body, if you're looking at me and all of that, and that's a pedestal that you want to be on, that's like a goal that you're trying to reach. If where I'm at is the level that you want to raise up to, and that's your goal, more power to you, man. It's all relative. We all start from somewhere, and we all keep pushing towards something better. Like I said, I'm not, woe is me over the fact that there are all these. Sam Sulek, for example, probably makes me look like I hardly work out. You know what I mean? But that's not who I'm in competition with. I'm in competition with who I was yesterday and who I am tomorrow. I didn't have the best arm day in the world, but it wasn't the worst one either. I think a young me would be pretty happy with where I'm at now. But that being said, I have a lot to work on, and I'm a little skeptical of anybody that does see me as like a prime goal, or even just a goal, really, because there's so many facets of my being that need to be sorted out. There's so many things that I feel like I need to do better in order to be looked at as a model or a role model or anybody's goal in any regard. But either way, I think I've been rambling on long enough. We all yearn, I think. I think for one thing or another, everybody, when they're alone with their thoughts, there's something that they yearn for, something they desire, something that, if given the opportunity, they would go for that over probably anything else in life. And if you might be listening and know exactly what I'm talking about, or you might be listening and feel like you have that yearning, but you have no idea what it's for. You have this weird desire. You want, but you don't know what. Well, you know what? Shut up and get to work. Because the more you do that, the more that voice starts to quiet down, The more that yearn starts to sort itself out and become clear in the way that you can see what it is that you want. And it's no longer enigmatic. It's no longer abstract to the point where you're, sitting around and it's affecting you negatively in other points of your life. I don't know. Food for thought. Legs tomorrow, probably. I gotta sort out the way that I'm doing my splits. I want to be able to hit everything twice a week with decent intensity, so long as I'm getting all of my macros in, which I'm not right now. If anybody can recommend me a good macro tracker, that would be nice, because I haven't really found anything that I love. I'm probably just being stupid about it. But yeah, legs tomorrow. Legs and abs probably. I'll talk about all that when we get into it. But thanks for watching, if you did. And stay cool.